Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with a re-review of Mysterious Heroine X. For those of you who are not aware, she's recently received 2 additional buffs in JP, so I thought it'd be fair to come back to her and see if those buffs made her any more viable, compared to my initial spotlight. For those of you keeping track, that does mean she now has 4 total buffs, which means she's as buffed as she can get. Unless they plan on making her the first 6-star servant and giving her a 4th skill, it's unlikely that she'll be receiving any more interludes. So now's the best time to reassess her. If you didn't see my original MHX spotlight, that'll be linked down in the description below, but if you want a refresher, my analysis basically was that she makes for a good support for archers as she's able to deal some extra damage against sabers and she's a good star generator. However, that is not really a niche that needed to be filled, and her overall damage is just too lacking compared to the other 5-star assassins, to the point where even some 4 stars outdamage her. So with that in mind, let's take a look and see if these new buffs make her any better. As I mentioned, MHX has received 2 new buffs this year that were not reflected in my original spotlight. The first of those buffs came from the 4th anniversary rank up quest, aka the Servant Strengthening Part 11, and it upgraded her first skill, Fire Support EX, to Fire Support XEX EX, which added the effect of decreasing the defense of all enemies between 10 and 20% for 3 turns, and it also decreased the cooldown by 1. You can look forward to her receiving this buff in NA for the 4th anniversary, which should be the middle of 2021. Her second buff she received very recently, and it was an upgrade to her 3rd skill, Galactic Meteor Sword Rank C. She received this buff during the Saber Wars 2 event, and it upgraded her skill to Galactic Meteor Sword XEX Rank A, adding the effect of increasing her attack for 3 turns between 10 and 20%. You can expect to see this buff in NA during the Saber Wars 2 event, which should be in October of 2021, so both of these buffs are 2 years away, and they both do a good job of increasing her overall damage, both by softening her enemies and increasing her attack. Now, neither of these buffs really fundamentally changes her gameplay. You're still going to use her much the same way as you did before these buffs. One way you can use her is as a archer support servant, where she can star gen for archers and do some additional damage to the saber enemies. She makes for a good support for crit based archers like Emiya, Nobunaga, Jane, where she can be a very good star generator. Or you can use her a lot more offensively, where she is the focal point of your attack. And you're going to want to support her with quick buffing servants like Assassin of the Nightless City, Osakabe Hime, and Ishtar Rider. As far as craft essences go, if you're using her as a star generator for archers, you're going to want to accentuate that star generating, so use craft essences like 2030, Seaside Luxury, and Merry Sheep. But if you're using her for damage, then you're going to want to use things like Black Grail, Imaginary Around, and Someday in Summer. Now the $1 million question is, did any of these buffs really help her that much? And the answer is yes, in some considerable ways. Most noticeably, it made her much more powerful with her Noble Phantasm. She has a much stronger Noble Phantasm than any other assassin, as long as you don't account for any special buffs like anti-female or anti-alter ego. So now she actually does have a good niche as a pure damage dealer, and there's a good reason to use her over some of the other assassins. If you want to try to do as much damage as possible with your Noble Phantasm, then she's an excellent choice to pick. Her saber damage is also much higher by default, so she's a great complement for archers, both as a star generator and for damage. She does incredible damage to saber enemies. And there is a lack of single target 5-star archers, so it can be worthwhile to bring her for some anti-saber fights. On the downside though, that is still kind of just a tacked on niche. She's not a full-on replacement for an archer, as she doesn't have class advantage. I really wish that instead of getting a bonus against sabers, she just got an archer class advantage. She also still has problems comparing to the top tier assassins. Jack is still much better against females, for example, and she has better NP spam and star generating, whereas someone like Kama is likewise a better NP spammer and has much more versatility in her skill set. So even though she can sometimes overpower them in a single Noble Phantasm, she's usually not the better option. But that's not to say that she's a bad servant. Overall, she is in a much better spot, and she feels like a more complete servant. She doesn't feel nearly as underwhelming as she did at release, and as she does now in NA. She has very good NP gain and star generating, and her kit synergizes a lot better now since it's geared toward nuking enemies. She also makes for a unique servant to use alongside archers against saber enemies, and she's one of the best star gen options available for archers like Emiya and Gil. And she still has good survivability thanks to her invincibility. But her buffs didn't fix all of her other outlier issues. For example, her skill cooldowns are still wonky since they're all on different timers, her stun is still unreliable, and despite the massive NP damage buff that she's gotten, she still lags behind the other single target quick superstars like Kama, Melt, MHX Alter, and Jack, who either out DPS her or have more to offer. Some people mentioned to me that she didn't get a much needed quick buff, and I agree, a quick buff would have made much more sense than the attack buff. But overall, she is in a much better spot now, and she's a powerful boss killer, with the flexibility to be used against sabers. She feels a lot more balanced and strong all around, which is why I'm upgrading her rating from a C+ to a B+. I think she's just shy of making that top tier, but she's an excellent and solid choice as an assassin nonetheless. Definitely worth investing in. And those are my thoughts on the buffs to Mysterious Heroine X. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know which servants you want me to re-review as well. I do plan on putting more of these out. And if you haven't already, do make sure you follow us on Twitter, join the party over on our Discord, and follow us on Twitch. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave it a like, and if you really enjoyed it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as always, I will see you on the next Servant Spotlight. This is Sober Oni, signing out. Later.